This is Titan Talk. This is Titan... Okay, never mind. This is Titan Talk. Welcome everyone. Today is June the 2nd. We're in June now officially, and this is episode 6 of Titan Talk. My name is Kimber, and I'll be breaking down the latest episode of Attack on Titan today, and this is going to be filled with a lot of spoilers. We're going to be going into the plot, into a lot of character developments, because this episode was very character heavy. We're going to talk about my favorite quote, and we're going to talk about some developments in the Titan area. Later I'll go into my predictions for the next episode and talk about some news in the Attack on Titan media world. I don't own any of the storylines, characters, or events in the Attack on Titan world, nor do I own any of the rights pertaining to the show. Alright, let's do this! Okay, so chapter 34 was called Opening. I still don't know why. I think it just has to do with the characters admitting things, confessing. A lot of character flaws and character explanations came out in this episode. It wasn't very action-packed, I'll say that. A lot of it took place in the forest of giant trees. They were just kind of sitting there. That's kind of what I had picked up from the previews for this episode, and there wasn't a lot in the way of a description for this episode in the previous preview, but I doubted that the scouts would reach them. I thought it was too far away for them to reach them, and in that regard I was right. And I had also predicted that Eren and Reiner would exchange words, and that they did. So, going through the actual plot of what happened / what was said. So we start off with Hange, who's still in pretty bad shape. She said that they had captured this Titan, but I didn't actually see that part. I may have missed it, but the Titan that couldn't walk, the one who had landed on the house, Connie thinks it's his mom. I think it's his mom as well, but she wants to go back to that village, and there had been somebody who said, no, I will go for you. Super nice of him, by the way. I think this is going to come up in a later episode, what he finds when he goes to this village. Also, we see the scouts get back into formation. I missed this. I missed them getting into right flank, left flank, center flank, etc. This team over here, this team over there. I missed that. I liked that strategy stuff that they had in the first season, and this was a teeny bit of that coming back. Just a little bit. They're super pumped to go over to save Eren. They don't get there this episode, though. It's a shame. But anyway, then we go to the forest of giant trees. This is where a lot of things were said, and that's pretty much what happened there. At first, we see Eren discovering that he doesn't have arms. He tries to obviously fight, even though he doesn't have arms. It's just who he is. Ymir has to come in and stop him and say, hey, that's probably not a good idea right now. Look at the world around you. Look at the Titans that are hanging out down there staring at us. Look at the guys with the gear on. Look at us missing limbs. Hello. And I think that kind of gets through to Eren. He's a very stubborn person. But also, what's with the big Titans staring at them? Ymir kind of hinted at that, but never really dived into why those guys were just kind of sitting there waiting. I don't know. Does she know something about that others don't? She did say one of them looked like a scaredy cat, and that could be something that comes up later, that some of the Titans are actually afraid. But do I consider that a Titan development? Not really. That's just a vague hunch of mine. Okay, so in a previous episode, we've already seen that Titans can move at night. Reiner specifically says we are going to leave at night when the Titans can't move. And then Ymir confronts him on that fact, saying, oh, I've seen Titans move at night. We all have. But Reiner says that they don't move at night here, but they do move at night elsewhere, and that Ymir would know something about that. And she didn't respond to that. So there must be something else going on here that she knows about that we don't. This episode was pretty much a lot of maybe, possibly, sort of Titan developments coming up here and there, but nothing really 100% confirmed. There is a theory I have on one of the clips they showed in this episode, but we'll get to that later. We also see Eren kind of losing his cool, even as in his mind he's thinking the words, I need to do a good job to suppress all my emotions. He is doing doing a horrible job at suppressing all of his emotions. He's grunting and teeth bared and really hyped up about the situation. He's always been one to act on emotion, and this moment is not an exception to that. So then we go back to the formation real quick, just to show that Mikasa is pushing too hard and Hannes basically has to calm her down. I think at this moment, she's usually pretty calculated as well, but when it comes to Eren, she also lets her emotions guide her, and as we've seen, that's not a very good idea. She's kind of leading her section a little too far away from the goal, and Hannes has to come in and say, hey, you need to calm down. Basically. And again, they all just want to get there super fast. They want to get there before the sun goes down. And that's when they think Bert and Ernie are going to take Ymir and Eren and leave. So now we go back to the forest again. And we come in at an interesting part. Reiner is saying how tired he is and how, oh, we'll worry about getting promoted later. Reiner thinks that they're going to get promoted. What? Everyone there is just like looking at each other like, what does he think he's doing? Why is he saying this? And then Eren comes out and says, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Again, not hiding his emotions very well, like he had told himself to do in his mind. Not following his own advice when it comes to his emotions. And Reiner had the balls to say, what are you so angry about, Eren? Are you kidding me, Reiner? You bite his arms off. You are responsible for his mother being eaten. There's so much destruction and human lives lost because of you. And then you have the nerve to ask what you're so angry about. And I think Reiner is crazy. I think that is what's going on here. Ymir does a very good job of explaining that he is basically emotionally compartmentalizing what's going on around him. And when they're confronting him about this, he's not doing a very good job of accepting that. The cognitive dissonance is so real. We also see this clip of Reiner tackling someone in a uniform. I'll talk about that later. So Eren also confronts those two about when he had told them about how his mother had died. And he said that Bert was responsible for that chunk of wall flying into his house, preventing his mother from being able to escape, and then she was eaten. Bert's response to this was my favorite quote in the episode, and I'll get to that in a moment. But after he says that, Eren threatens to make Bert and Ernie suffer in the worst way possible, and I don't blame him. Come on. There would be no reason why he would not feel that way. He says, you have it coming. Ymir's not buying it. Eren is a lot of talk. Eren is huge on emotion. Ymir sees that, and she sees this scared little boy basically wanting to get vengeance on something he simply can't get vengeance on in the moment. He can't really do anything right now. He doesn't have arms. So Ymir basically expresses that, hey, don't make empty threats. Come on, you're wasting our time. And then she asks about the Beast Titan. And none of them really had answers for that, which was surprising to me. I thought at least one of them would have known something about the Beast Titan, and they don't. None of them do. He just kind of comes out of nowhere, is super intelligent and super eloquent when he talks, and they have no idea where he's from. I just thought that was weird. We'll probably figure out why that is in a later episode. And in response to that, Reiner starts talking about, they see Eren as a lost cause at this point. They're not going to get Eren on their side. We get that. But then they turn to Ymir and they say, hey, we can't guarantee your safety, but we can guarantee Krista's safety, which they don't call her by her real name still. Her real name is still not known by a lot of people. Anyway, I thought it was weird that they would use Histria as a bargaining chip because they don't have any control over her. I think Ymir recognizes that as well, but when she's asked who the enemy is by Eren, she says, who knows? And that's a backhanded way of saying, alright, Bert and Ernie, I will comply. And once she does that, we then see a flare, and we know that the scouts are coming in the next episode. Not this episode. To be continued. Right. So that's kind of what they had talked about, the general points that they had hit on in their discussion in the trees, etc. They did show a slide like they do every episode. The slide was about Titan regeneration, and what it said was, those with the power to become Titans possess an inherent ability to regenerate. Their limbs can be dismembered and their internal organs destroyed, but as long as they survive, their bodies will regenerate back to normal given sufficient time. So it basically just explains why they hang out in the forest for so long. Bert and Ernie were probably also not in great shape either and needed to heal as well. I mean, not as bad as Eren and Ymir, come on, they're literally without limbs right now. But nonetheless, I think after every Titan transformation, there is some sort of recuperation time that has to be taken into account. So even though they're up and moving, etc., they still needed to rest for a little bit. And I couldn't find anything much deeper than that to it. It's just the time it takes to regenerate that body function again. So my favorite quote, we'll rewind a little bit. We go back to where Eren is confronting Bert and Ernie about hearing the story of how his mother had died. And Eren had said, you know, you were the ones who kicked that piece of wall into our house and that prevented her from escaping. You guys are responsible for my mother's death. Why did you behave the way you did? How could you sit there and listen to me tell you this and not break down? And Bert said something super unlike him. He said, back then, I thought I felt sorry for you. I thought I felt sorry for you. He thought he did, but he does not. He obviously, this whole time, all these years, he has kept his goal in check and he hasn't succumbed to the same emotional compartmentalizing that Reiner has. I think the reason that Bert and Ernie stick together is because they help each other out in certain ways. Bert is able to keep his head on straight. Reiner is more of a strategist and is able to plan things out. You know, Reiner makes a plan. Bert makes sure that they stick to the plan. This whole time, Bert has kept his eye on the prize. And he hasn't lost himself and gotten confused like Reiner obviously has. So, Bert saying, I thought I felt sorry for you to Eren about his mother's death. I think that was a good summation of him having his eye on the prize this whole time. I think that was also a gesture to, I thought I could feel bad for humans, but I realized that I just don't. And that's huge. So let's talk about some of the stars of this episode. So obviously, there's Eren. And as we all know, he's super bad at keeping his emotions in check. He only acts on emotions. He doesn't know of a better part of himself to guide his actions and words besides his emotions. That's it. Even as Ymir is explaining to him that that is a very, very bad idea, he can't keep it together. Once he gets too emotional over something, he shies away from any sort of plan. And he's been like this for a long time, so it wasn't really anything new. But just even in these circumstances, these dire circumstances, Eren cannot keep it together. I also want to talk about Ymir very quickly. She is very calculated as usual. You know, she never seems to be lost. She always seems to have a plan of her own. She knows she needs Eren here to listen to her in order for her plan, whatever it is. The viewers don't know it. Whatever her plan is, she needs it to succeed. So when she said, who knows, about being asked who the enemy is, and that being kind of her way of siding with Bert and Ernie, I don't think she's actually going to side with Bert and Ernie. I think she's just doing what's in her best interest right now. My prediction is that once the scouts get there, she's going to act totally different. But no, I don't think that she is siding with Bert and Ernie. And I think she does have an appreciation for humankind. Obviously, for one human, Historia/Krista. They're still calling her that, so we'll still call her that for a little bit. I think she's just doing this to save her own butt. She doesn't want them to hurt her, so she'll play their game. And just because of who she is and how guarded her emotions are, nobody can see her hand. So Reiner, super interesting in this episode. I think for the longest time, no matter what side we thought he was on, you know, in the first season and a half when he was on the side of the humans, always seemed to be in control, seemed to have it together. And then when he's actually revealed to be a Titan, he then seemed to have it in control at that moment as well. But when he's confronted with both sides of his psyche, he does not have it together. He goes super crazy for a second and he thinks that he's a hero of some kind and that he's able to be promoted within the scout regiment in some way for what he's done. Everybody else knows that this is crazy talk, but he does not realize that until Bert comes out and says, hey, we're not scouts. We're not these soldiers. We're warriors. We're not on the human side. Reiner seems to lose himself and he seems to put his emotions in boxes, and he has some emotions emotions for being a Titan and some emotions for being a Scout. They are separate. And when somebody says that you are both of those people, he can't comprehend that so easily anymore. He had been playing this game for so long that I think he's lost himself a little bit, and it's going to take a while before he can get himself together, which may hurt their plans in the future, I believe. I think Reiner, being this double agent character, he's not emotionally balanced enough to handle that, to understand that what he had been doing for these last couple of years was a facade. It was an act that he was putting on. He got sucked into it. He actually feels sorry for humankind. He actually sees these soldiers as his brothers, as his friends, as his sisters, etc. But then we have Bert, who does not see it that way. From the "I thought I felt sorry for you" quote, we see that he, this whole time, has not been on the side of humans in any emotional state, which is a credit to him. I mean, sure, he has his head on straight and knows exactly what he's doing, but what he was doing was being a traitor. So he's still not a good person. He just knows what he's doing and he's aware of it. And I think that makes him a little worse than Reiner psychologically. Reiner actually expresses that he has some regret, that he has some remorse for the things that he's done to humankind, but Bert does not have that. And I thought that was a super interesting point to come out. And I think that's one reason why Bert's so quiet, is because he's surrounded by these things he doesn't want to talk to. He doesn't want to talk to humans. Maybe in, Titanland, wherever that is, he's way more outgoing and amicable and open about himself. But around humans, he just, he doesn't want to talk to them. Plus, he also, I think, doesn't want to end up like Reiner. He doesn't want to get too attached to these humans, and he doesn't want that emotional bond to affect his goal. His eyes are on the prize. He is focused, and there's no amount of human emotion that'll get in the way of that to him. Very, very interesting here. I know there wasn't a lot of action this episode, but what we did see was a lot of what's going on in their psyches, and we see who's actually remorseful for what has been happening and who is not, and where everybody's at mentally. It was a pretty cool episode. People are gonna rag on it because, not a lot of physical stuff happened, but did you actually watch it and really understand it? And again, you just gotta stack up the dominoes, and then eventually they'll be knocked down. Okay, so about Titan developments. Now there are two things. Thing 1, not as big as Thing 2. So Thing 1, regeneration. We already knew that they could regenerate. We also know that the amount of time that they need to regenerate is based on how injured they are. And as long as they survive, they can regenerate. But Thing 2, this is huge. I think Marco was murdered. Hear me out. Now, while Ymir is stating that Reiner is emotionally compartmentalizing the situation of being a Titan and being a Scout, we look at Marco's death specifically. What we see is Reiner tackling someone to the ground, someone who is a Scout and does not have their gear on, and then we see Marco's death and Reiner asking, why is Marco being eaten? And those events are shown back to back, like they are related in some way. Bert looks at Reiner while he's saying, why is Marco being eaten, with this worried look on his face, similar to what he's doing now in the forest while Reiner is crazily compartmentalizing again. In season 1, when Marco died, we see Jean stumble upon Marco's body. Nobody had an explanation for where his equipment had gone, and thought it was weird that he was unarmed and knocked out. What I believe happened, what we saw in this episode, is we see Reiner tackling Marco, and at that time taking away his equipment and beating him up. I think Reiner and Bert were responsible for Marco dying. And I only say Bert because they're together all the time. And I think we see Titan Reiner tackling Marco, taking his gear, but then we see Scout Reiner asking, why are they eating Marco? I think that was one of the first moments where Bert saw that Reiner was cracking up, that he was so emotionally involved, but also not, that he was compartmentalizing. Basically, like a psychopath, Bert did not black out and forget about that. Reiner did. Why would they attack Marco? Why? There had to have been a reason for Reiner to jump on Marco like that and attack him as he would being on the Titan side of things. But my idea is that I think that he knew that Reiner and Bert were Titans. I think Marco picked that up. Somehow, I don't know how. This is all just, I'm throwing this out here. I think Marco knew about them being Titans. Now, I want your guys' opinion on this. Those of you who have not read the manga, I want your opinions on what you think happened, why they showed Marco dying, why they showed Reiner attack this person, the scout who was equipmentless. Why? Alright, so the next episode is chapter 35. It's called Children. In this, we see that the scouts have finally reached the forest. They are there to obviously fight Bert and Ernie. We also see Ymir in Titan form for like a split second. She's in there. So again, I don't think she actually wants to join Bert and Ernie, but I think she only said that so they would help her escape. But the way they word it in the preview is they say that she has a plan all her own. So she has this plan that Bert and Ernie don't know about, or the scouts, or Eren. It's a plan all her own. This will all come out in the next episode, I believe. So I think the next episode we're going to see a pickup of the action. We're going to see some fighting. We're going to see some Titans. We're going to get a little more something. We're going to get a little more movement, etc. Not just sitting around on the trees. It's going to be good. As far as outside the episode, there's nothing to report, scouts. Like, I just don't have any news. I scoured. I looked around. I couldn't find any news in the Attack on Titan media world this week. Maybe it's just kind of a calm time in the Attack on Titan world. This happened last week too, that I just didn't have any outside news. So maybe we'll see something big come out in the next month. I don't know. But until then, my name is Kimber. For a hell of a large selection of content, visit itsahellofaworld.com or follow them on their social media channels. You can also follow me personally on my Twitter account at KimberBoBimber. It's KimberBimber. And that has been episode 6 of Titan Talk. Thanks for listening and attack on!